Hello guys, today I'm just going to show you how to create this Haunch plate from scratch and how to edit and add in the stiffener plates and bolt spacing, etc. So stay tuned. Okay, let's start by doing the Haunch connection. So we're going to go to structure, here by the connection settings, Apex Haunch, add that in, say okay. Then what we are going to do is we're going to go and say steel connection, then go down here, select apex. I'm gonna click on the first beam, press Ctrl on your keyboard, click on the second, press enter. Now it has created the apex. There we go. Just took some time to actually create the connection. So here you can see how the connection is currently displayed. Now we can go and edit this plate. We click on it, we say edit type. Then this will pop up. We go to modify parameters, you say edit. Now we can go and play around with this plate. So if we just zoom into this area so you can see a bit better. So now you can go and check the thickness of this plate. That is 1, which means the thickness of both of these plates individually. So if I make it 12 mils, each plate will be 12 mils thick. So let's just zoom in there. So if I change this to 20, you can see both of these plates increase. So if I just make that 10 again, we leave it like that. Then if you go to erection tolerance, that is the gap between the two plates. So if I make that 20, you can see that the gap increases between the plates, but I'm just going to keep that on 0. Then you can also see that if I just scroll down here, if we say the correction angle, if I make that 5 degrees, it'll open the plate up like that, but I don't do this type of connection. That's just a correction angle for if for some other reason your beam needs to be corrected to be more vertical. Okay, then end plate type. Now you can choose here the projection. That is basically from the top of the plate to the bottom, or I can say from top. What that means is from the top of this beam to the bottom here, it's going to give us that length. Then from the bottom, if I say 900, it takes the dimension from the bottom of that plate to the top. If I say from the top, you can see it starts from the top there. If I say projection, it's just going to give us the projection of the current haunch. So it's going to respect the top of that rafter to the bottom of your current haunch angle here. So I'm going to say from the top, going to make it 800. Then the projection top, if you say 20 mils here, it's just going to bring up the plate by 20 mils. You can see the dimension 4 here. So you can choose if you want a projection at the top. I'm not going to put one. I'm just going to make it 0. Then the end plate width. Currently the projection would be the width of this flange, which is 154. You can see here. So then you can see you can do a projection to the left and a projection to the right. So if I type in 50, it's going to go to the left, and 50 it will go to the right, like that. But if you want to, you can say exact value, and you can just change the width and make it a round number to 200. So it projects from the center 100 to the left, 100 to the right. Even though it says 50 here, those dimensions don't make a difference to what we've done now because it's grayed out. Then if we go to haunch 1, you'll see that they say this haunch is the right hand side haunch. So you can decide here, you can either make it none, then you obviously don't have any haunch. Or you can say profile, that means it's the same I-beam section size that you're going to use as the haunch. Or you can do a plate. Here you're going to basically do your own flat plate combination. but I like using the profile. So I'm going to leave it like that. Then what you can do here now is you can work with length from inner end plate face. That will be this one here, the number 1. If I change that to length in slope, you'll see it changes to that actual slope there. And if I say length from middle, it's going to take it from the middle of the 2 plates to the right. So I'm going to use this one, and currently it's at 450. So if I maybe make this 600, you'll see how this actually increases. So for this exercise, I'm just going to make it 500. There we have it like that. Then here you can see it's the height from the rafter bottom. That would be your number 2. I'm going to change this. You can play around with this. You'll see if I click on it, it gives you the actual dimension from the position that it explains here. So I'm going to say height from raft to top. I'm going to make it the same as our end plate that we did earlier. So if I go back end plate, we made it 800. We go back to haunch, rafter from the top, I'll also make it 800. So you can see that it lines up exactly at the bottom of that vertical plate. Now you can see it's still a bit skew, so you can go and change that to 450 or maybe 420 to have it more vertical. 410, just play, oh sorry, rather 440. Just play around with it so that it is going to look as close as vertical that you can get it. So that looks okay. You can go and adjust this later if you want to. And then the corner finish chamfer is this number 3 here. It's basically, if I zoom in here, it's that corner there. So if I make this 0, you'll see what happens. It actually takes away that chamfer. And the number 4, you can see it's this in the corner here, that gap there. And if I make it 0, it's going to look like that. So I'm going to leave it like that. So this obviously changed our height here. So if we make it 500, let's just go 470. That's more or less that we want. So that's, I like doing it like this. You can obviously put in the chamfers if you want. Then here it says same section as rafter. So I said earlier, if you choose profile, it's going to choose the same rafter I-beam profile that you have. If I untick this, you can go and select any beam, universal beam that's currently loaded into your project. So if I click that one, you'll see that it's changed. You won't see it clearly, but it's changed that section size. So if let's just use another example. If I do a click down here and I go and say, let's just see if there's another beam size, or maybe this one. There you can see it's changed like that, but this obviously looks very odd. So I'm just going to change it back to the one that we've previously had. But that's just to show you. So I'm just going to tick this again. Then you can say here, do you want the same for both sides? Meaning the right hand side must match the left hand side. So I'll tick this box, which means if you go to Haunch 2, you don't have to change anything. Okay. Then if you go to bolts, you can go and change your bolts here. So firstly, this is quite straightforward, the bolt diameter. If I change it to 16 or maybe 24s, it's going to look like this. Then the bolt type, you can obviously choose the type of bolt that you prefer. There's a lot of different bolts here. You can just scroll through them. You can see if I click on them, it will change the specific bolts. You can go and read up on the different types of bolts. Then the bolt grade, this one is 10.9. The bolt assembly, I just keep it like that. Then distance from previous bolt. This is where we're going to start editing our bolts. So if we start at this, we'll come back to those two. If we start on this one here, you'll see that horizontal distance is 60, which means it's the distance between those two inner bolts, which is that bolt there and this bolt here. So if I change that to 100, you'll see how it shifted out. So it's 50 millimeters from the center of this beam to the left and to the right. Okay, then you can also say here numbers per side. So if I change it from 1 to 2, it's going to give me more bolts. But obviously it does not fit onto the plate, but you can go and adjust this plate's width like we did earlier. But it's just to show you guys. So the intermediate distance then is not grayed out anymore. You'll see if I change this back to 1, it's grayed out. If I change it to 2, it's not grayed out, which means that 4, which is the 4 here, is the dimension between the bolts that we've added now and the bolts that we had. So if I change that to 100, you can see how it moves those bolts. Obviously it looks odd because our plate isn't big enough. I'm going to just change that back to 1, press enter. Then if we go back to the top here, if I say distance from previous bolt and I untick this, you'll see what happens is the bolts actually get closer to one another. So make sure you tick this box so that it's evenly spaced. So then you can also invert the bolts. If I invert it, it just switches around which side the nut and the actual bolt or the bolt is. So if I just press invert again, you can see how it switches around. Then if you go to bolt groups, so now you can see you have group 1 to group 4. So I'm going to show you what happens if I edit group 2. The 2 lines means the 2 bolts. So it's line 1, line 2. So what that means that this line goes through here, which is the line for those bolts connecting and those 2 bolts connecting. So if I change that group 2 and I make it 1, you'll see that it takes away the bottom bolt. If I make it 0, it takes away the whole group 2. So I'm just going to work with 2 groups, a group 1 and a group 2. So group 1 will be the bolts at the top, which is basically from the top of the plate to this flange here, and then from the bottom flange to the haunch here at the bottom, I'm going to have the group 2. So group 1, I'm going to say I want 4 bolts, 4 lines, which is then basically 8 bolts in total, because you have 4 bolts on the one side and 4 bolts on the other side. And then the starting distance is the 2, which is the 2 here. So it's from the top of the I-beam to the center of the first bolt. So if I make this 120, you'll see it moves down. That's the position that I want. And then the intermediate distance is the distance between the bolts. So they're evenly spaced at 100 millimeters. If you look at the number 3 here, it says 3 intermediate distance. If you look here on the illustration, it says 3, which is the distance between the bolts. Now for group 2, I want 2 lines. You can see it's added in those 2 bolts, which is basically 4 bolts, 2 on each side. Then I want to say I want the starting distance. So this starting distance is going to be, if you look at the number 2 here, it's going to be from the last bolt of group 1 to the first bolt of group 2. So I'm going to change that to 150, and you see it shifted down that bolt. Okay, of that group of bolts. All right. So then if I change the top bolts, let me just show you. If I change this to 100, it moves up all the groups together. So then if you want that bolt again to be lower, we need to change that to 200. You can see there it sits like that. Okay. So that's how you do the groups. You can obviously add more groups, but for now we are okay in terms of that. And then stiffeners. You're going to have these stiffener plates that you can see here. So if I say none, it can obviously fall away. If you say full, it's the one that we've had. It's on both sides. And then you can change your thickness to, let's say 20 mils, for instance. It's going to change that thickness. So if we say 3/4, that's how the plate will look like. A half, half of the beam depth. Then a value, you can then change your value to whatever you'd like. You can make it 120. It's going to sit there. Say 250. See, so I'm just going to keep it full like that. Then stiffener 2 is obviously the stiffener plate on the other side. Also make it 20. Then the justification, you can see if I keep it standard, it's in the position that it's currently in. If I change it to centered, it's going to center that to the center of that specific plate. Then if I say other side, it's going to just flip it to the other side. So if I say standard, I'm just going to keep it like that because this plate lines up in the position that I want it to line up. Same for justification 2. Then corner finish. If I zoom in here, just want to do it like that. Currently it's straight, so the corner size is that corner and that corner. If I make it 0, you'll see it goes obviously flush with the I-beam. If I say convex and I change it to 20, it's going to be a circular type of plate. Concave, it's the other side around. And then obviously none, you know what that means. So I'm going to keep it at straight. That's just a better connection as this has a concave, or not concave, it has a convex shape, this I-beam. So it's not going to work if you make your plate straight. Okay. Not straight if you say none. So just keep that straight, standard. Corner size 20. You can obviously make it 50, whatever you'd like. Then the welds, I just always keep it as is. You can change the weld sizes if you want. Then under special, you can add in some additional plates. If I just scroll through it quickly, like that, and beam stiffeners. So there's a lot that you can add here. This is just a basic plate that we usually do, and then we give this to the shop detailers. So if I say okay, and I say okay again, and say escape, then you'll see how this plate has been updated to what we have edited in our parameters. So yeah guys, that's how you create a haunch plate. Thank you once again for all your likes and your support. I do appreciate it. If you like this video, please share and comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers guys.